When I look at our history, I realize that our history is not negotiable. It's not defined by slavery. It is a profound history, and we need to teach it in honesty. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Erudition Network. My name is Eddie Phillips. This is the Erudition Network's interactive Black History and Knowledge session. We are here on Thursday night. Our new time will be starting at 5:30 because I needed to test my time period a little bit. So if you are used to seeing us at 5, please start to join us at about 5:30. We will be on for an hour. And we will be here as always to talk about history, Black history in general. Unless this is a knowledge session where we talk about knowledge in general. Information that is provided on this program is usually history that is not often covered or has been covered and not either accurate or has been counter revision or not taught in its completion. And so I try my best as a public historian to get on every Thursday night and talk to you and provide you with information that is both historical and has a relation to our current place and where we are in the world and life and everything else. So I ask you to share the program. If you are new to it, thank you for joining us. If you watch the recording of it on YouTube after the live, please feel free to drop questions, concerns, opines, anything that you want about the episodes or something that you want us to cover in any of our remarks. The things on YouTube where you can respond to, or if you're catching us on Facebook, please do so there also. If you are writing comments on Facebook, but I am not seeing them, please feel free to join our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, type in the Erudition Network, and you should see our symbol, or you should see that I'm currently on live. And if you click that, you should be able to participate in the live chat without any problems. Facebook has been giving a lot of streamers problems lately as far as us not seeing a lot of the comments that come in during live sessions. So we want your opinions and thoughts and things to be heard. So please do that and join us. It has been a pleasure over the last few weeks to really try to do this show. We are getting more and more people who are joining in, more new viewers. I appreciate all of you. If you are a new viewer or a new subscriber, thank you for subscribing to the channel. Please leave suggestions, thoughts on what ways you think we can make things better, more things clearer, if that is not happening for you. And just let me know what you're thinking and how you feel about things. And we will try, little sweaty today, we will try to make sure that we respond. Tonight, I'm going to hit a topic. I was up and down about what topic I would talk about tonight. There is so much currently going on in our world, in our country, in our communities, in our culture, that we can talk about. But I wanted to start turning my attention tonight towards Black economy As you may or may not know, there have been numerous boycotts since the idea of removing DEI. And the boycotts are an attempt to push the idea of Black economic power, or should I say, the economic power of people of color in the world. And so I wanted to make sure that I kind of gave a historical perspective on this, predominantly because I believe that we're falling into this trap. I think it's the best way for me to say it. This this schism is, where we think that this is something new, and a lot of people are pushing this. Black dollars are not new. People of color's dollars are not new in the making of this country. The idea of multiple cultures having these new things are not new either. So what we're going to talk about tonight is why it is important, and historically how we have contributed and been denied in the American system. Because if we can do that, I think we have a better understanding of where we're going right now. Y'all with me? Y'all with me? So I think that tonight, that's what I really want. I'm going to try to stay on focus and really kind of tackle. Ever since the beginning of the life being over here in America from Europe, coming from Europe, there has always been an economic boom, so to speak, for the colonies, the different colonies that were formed over even before the formation of America. And the transatlantic slave trade is the very first example. It is the very first example, as nefarious as that is, as tragic as that was, but it is a very, very clear example of Blacks' contributions to the growth of this country. Blacks at the time who were enslaved, they built the wealth of the American industries, homes, cities, and communities. They were the workers. They were the ones who did all of the work, planted the seeds, raised the livestock, and did all of these things for the benefit of this country, for their masters, even though they were denied. And so when we look at that, we have to understand that it is important, that we understand our role in the building of America. And I think a lot of people over the last few decades have started to better understand that, because it is pushed, was heavily pushed in the civil rights movement. It was heavily pushed in our communities. So I think we have to start there as a beginning. However, we also have to input in the idea that is not historically accepted in all areas of world history: the arrival of the African in the Americas before the 1500s. We have to think about the fact of what the indigenous told the New World explorers as they made their ways over here. And what they told them was that blacks, men of dark skin, had come over. They had provided them knowledge on how to build things. They had provided them gold to lace on their spears, their arrowheads. And we know that they came over. So even before the transatlantic slave trade, even though we're going to start there tonight, I don't want to leave out the fact of the history that shows that before that, they were already contributing to the wealth, knowledge, and prosperity of the folks over there, over here. So, how is that important? We have to be smarter, wiser, in knowing our history. Tina and Sean Anthony, I see that you're here. Thank you for joining. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Please share, let people know that we're on. Thank you very much. So that starts there. When we go through schooling, they tell us about the, I'm sure many of you have heard about the Columbian Exchange. They tell us that when Columbus came over, things got so much better over here in the Americas, and things got so much better over in Europe because of the exchanges that were happening. And we give all that credit, again, to Columbus, who knew where he was coming over here because it had already been provided to him. And we've talked about that in numerous sessions over the years. But one of the key components that grew, at least the Americas, and its wealth to the American colonies, even as America became its own nation, was cotton. Secondary to the slave, cotton and sugar and tobacco were huge commodities. They were huge things that helped America become a leader in the early world. It fueled our Industrial Revolution in both Britain and in the Americas. It financed the explorations that we went on to track through the nation, to build our railroads, to grow our industries. The money from cotton was king. And before the Civil War, utilizing the free labor of the slave and the economic wealth of cotton grew America. But all of it was linked to the lives of Black people who contributed, grew, and advanced. Even when people were freed, Harriet Tubman freed hundreds of Black people. But even in freeing Blacks went back as freemen, as people who were placed outside of the South. They joined the workforce. They provided money to grow this nation. They didn't just stop. They grew crops, they did things, and they sold them, and that grew this nation. So let's not just assume that it was just from the lives of the slave. The industrious nature of the freemen, even before and after the Civil War, were huge contributors. The soldiers who fought in the Civil War, who brought their people with them, who were running away, escaping. Long lines of people who would cook and do things for the Union troops. Documented history of that all through the Civil War. Feeding the troops, fixing their uniforms, helping to make sure things were provided for them that they couldn't readily get. All of this is an advancement towards the economy and the making of America. When we think about 200,000 Black soldiers fighting for freedom in the Civil War, and we don't average in the idea of what their people, what they brought to it, it wasn't just the soldiering. And so, again, I made a point the last time I was on to talk about this idea of diversity, of the new Secretary of Defense saying that diversity can't be a strength. But Blacks and people of color and indigenous, they have shown that. Let's go to the 1860s. Let's look at the Buffalo Soldiers. When we look at what the Buffalo Soldiers' purpose was, it was to protect trade routes. It was to protect American money and development in the West. And they did it using Black men. We have always contributed to the economy and the welfare of this country. It was never free. Sorry for a moment. It was never free. So this is what we have to focus on. And what we need to be looking at when we look at our history. Because when we don't, we allow people to lie to us. We allow people to tell us what wasn't and what was, and we have no base, no backbone. I can go on and on. We can look at Booker T. Washington and Tuskegee and look at, even though it was a program of agricultural and services, those services were to be provided to white people in order to, again, contribute to the growth of this country. We can argue the way in which Booker T. Washington approached that. But the idea of growing wealth or bolstering or growing your wealth in post-Reconstruction South can't be ignored. Blacks brought a lot of knowledge out of slavery into towns as blacksmiths, seamstresses, cooks, sharecroppers. They brought all of the knowledge that they had learned out of slavery into the market to grow America. They worked as apprentices to whites even after slavery, making little pay, but allowing the growth of what became the post-Reconstruction market. George Washington Carver in Tuskegee is credited with all of these developments. And I told you all before how Henry Ford, the automobile maker, would make a journey down every year to speak to George Washington Carver, to pick his mind for ideas. Ford is credited with creating this amazing way of building things, the assembly line. But he understood that you had to get information, and he went out to go find the minds that he thought were the most intriguing minds of the time. We can't sit on our wealth. Name me, of the 8 people who are on here right now, name me someone, and I don't want him currently, someone in the 1800s and the 1900s who helped to establish Black wealth. Give me a name. I'll give you time as I go on, but give me a name of someone you remember from history that African American, Black, Indigenous, people of color who helped to grow this nation's economy and financially. While they're telling us that our diversity, equity, and inclusion doesn't matter, give me a historical name of someone you know in the last 200 years who helped to grow America. I'll give you one. I'll give you one that's easy, right? And I'll even go back. I'll go back to around early 1900s, 1905, Madam C.J. Walker. I'd use Madam C.J. Walker for two reasons. One, because she's African American, but at the same as, or she's Black, but at the same time, she's a female. And she built a hair care empire and put that money back into her community. She's one. There are many, many others. And so I am very, very disturbed when I hear people say that we don't provide or there's really no need to care about the dollars of people of color. Who are they? You see them on TikTok and everywhere. No one cares about your boycott. It's not that important, but it is very much important. It is very much important. Let me ask you all. I see no one's put anything in. No answer is incorrect. If I can't see your responses, please go to YouTube. Please go to YouTube. I know that Facebook has caused us some problems. If you're on YouTube, hey, drop something in there. I know you know a name. Somebody within the last 200 years. Come on, y'all. It's a lot of people, celebrity or not. But we need to talk about that. We need to talk about that. You know, when I was doing years ago, actually about a week ago, I can push this together. About a week or so ago, I was watching Pastor Razor's church, Faith Hope and Charity. I was watching them do toward the end of Black History Month a Black History bowl or quiz, and it made me think back to when I was a kid and I participated in the Black History Bowl, and one of the people that I had to remember was Ralph Bunche. And a lot of people probably don't know who Ralph Bunche is, but he is the first Black man, right, to as a diplomat to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. And he got that because of the agreements that he made between the Arab nations and Israel. But Ralph Bunche is important even in our conversation tonight because he also established this idea of growing wealth and connections between these countries, right? So he could mediate and talk about how to grow wealth between different countries. But many of us, and I'm going to tell you because I can't go into his whole history tonight, he is someone worth reading about. He is someone worth reading about that we don't really look up. But as a young boy, right, I learned about him. I learned how he grew global economic connections and trying to create peace with nations who respected the African American peacemaker more so than the polarized, racist, white diplomats that had come before. It is important to know that those efforts help to grow this country also. So I don't know why people think that our our culture is not important in the economic growth of this country. When on and on and on, we have seen that that is not the case. We made this country, helped this country to be formed into a superpower. Through the efforts, tries, and everything that we've done. Our capital city, Washington, D.C., wouldn't be what it is without the genius of Benjamin Banneker. Our understanding of how Blacks contribute to this country in different ways wouldn't be fully understood without the work of Frederick Douglass. And so we have to rise up beyond the idea that we're just people who picket. No, your dollars, they in your family's input is essential to the making of this country. You all are quiet tonight. Come on, I know y'all got some questions. There's 6 people up in here. Who got some thoughts on this subject? Drop it in here. Drop it in here. Most of us look at the economy. Unfortunately, I was joking because I was laughing with someone I was talking to online recently about how most people see the wealth of Black America coming from entertainment, from sports. And in the beginning of the country, or in the beginning of Blacks starting to really make contributions to the country, it wasn't always entertainment, but entertainment has always been a part of it. We can look at the famous entertainers of the early 1900s. Whether you talk about the Duke Ellingtons, the Count Basies, the Ethel Waters, whether you talk about Bessie Coleman, all of those people, you know, being stars within their own established area, definitely help. But that wasn't always just the case. A lot of our wealth came from the community, the church, which helped to apprentice, helped to provide training, helped to link people with others to grow community. And in growing community, the communities prospered. This is why you had places like Tulsa and Rosewood and others, which were cities or small towns that were prosperous. They were prosperous. But as with anything, what ended up happening was once Blacks had taken control of their own destinies, once they realized that they were going to push their own destiny with God's help, whites got angry. Racist whites got angry. And then we had this fall into murderous, horrendous actions. We had this fall into people doing things to humble us, to make us not feel as if we should be included. I am working on a small short of the Carrollton massacre in Carroll County, Mississippi. And as I was going through pulling the information so that I could put it into this little short, I was again appalled by how small things help to push the jealousy of racists in the late 1800s, early 1900s. History book doesn't really talk about things like the Carroll County massacre. And to give you a very quick rundown, two brothers were delivering syrup. They were delivering syrup to a local tavern restaurant, and they accidentally spilled it on a white man. And this was during the time of Reconstruction and the failing days of Reconstruction. And initially, the brothers apologized. Everything seemed to be okay. And they left. Well, the white man, feeling that he had been embarrassed, went to his lawyer and told his lawyer friend what happened. His lawyer said, well, they shouldn't be disrespecting you as men of color. And so he accosted them. He accosted them one afternoon and got into a physicality with them, because this was a time in which blacks were now being able to be in society with whites. This is Reconstruction. And they could have businesses and they could prosper. And these young men, they were prospering, and it was jealousy. And so what they did was the people broke them up. But later on that night, when the white lawyer, right, a man named Liddell, went to a restaurant, sat down, and whites were joking about how the brothers had, they were talking about him and saying things about him, and they pushed his racist anger. He went back with a gun and started firing shots at these young men, and they fired shots back, and both parties were hurt but not killed. No one was arrested because a white man had started this ruckus, this fracas. So the brothers did something that had never been done. They went to the courthouse in Mississippi and they filed attempted murder charges against this man. And when it came to trial, 50 to 100 white men broke into the trial as the brothers were sitting in a row, and innocent blacks were sitting in the rows. And 50 to 100 white men started firing and killing all black people in the courthouse. All of this started from the spilling of a little syrup. They killed arguably 26 black people in that courthouse, in front of the judge, in front of the sheriff, in front of everyone. Some blacks trying to get away jumped out of the second floor window and they shot them in the street till they were dead. No one was charged. But the message was sent. And the press of the day told you what the message was. The message was that you could do business, but know your place. Know your place. And we don't talk about that history. And now you have people trying to hide that history. I started to do this short on it that I'm doing because as I was talking to people, I realized they didn't know. They didn't know anything about this. I mentioned it just in a conversation. We have to know that we have been prevented, held back. Our dollars, our business matters. Sean Anthony. True, but we also influence, produce, cook food, and cleaning in the economy. That is true. Since most people didn't know how to properly cook, clean, or grow plants successfully for a long time, thus, as we mentioned, things like the Dust Bowl, and that is a great point. You can tell the influence or when it is removed from these communities because we have these things like the Dust Bowl and economic crashes. Great point. Seems like we're repeating these events because so many people claim they forgot. It's not even an issue of forgot anymore. A majority of it, of what it is that a lot of people, they don't want to visit these situations. They don't want to talk about this history. They don't want to even you to bring it up. We can go through all of these people who have been successful in America, who are of people of color. John H. Johnson starting Jet Ebony magazine. Right? Look at the people who are currently around. All of the businesses and people, we don't talk about that. And they have to fight in this economy where they are being told that they are DEI. They got their positions because someone gave it to them. That's insane. If any of you know who D Hawk is, if you don't know who D Hawk is, that's fine. D Hawk was the founder of Visa. But here's the thing. Visa credit cards, we all know what that is. But did you know that the reason that Visa credit cards became such an establishment in business is because D Hawk included Black individuals and communities in offering them credit. And he found that they paid their credit bills when others didn't. And it made his organization viable. We don't know any of this because we're not really taught this. And we're not really taught this because no one wants us to know how important that we are. Then I get on nights like this and I provide you some history behind it. But it's very small, the amount of influence that we have here. We talk about, over the last 10 years, we've spent so much talking about the Tulsa Race Massacre that happened in 1921. And we forget the things that led up to it, even in 1919. But if you look at the jump, skip, and play that went on, 1916, we established the income tax laws. We pushed the amendment to establish an income tax because the country could not survive post-slavery, post-Reconstruction, without taking something from the citizenry. Because before that, there had been free money, so to speak, by having slaves who you could work from can't see to can't see and make a lot of money. But after that, we had to find a way to financially make the country solvent. And in order to do that, what you had to do was tax things. And even in that process of taxing, they found that Black communities, African-American Black communities, freedmen, former slaves, were thriving because they had come out of slavery with knowledge and skills that they were using to benefit their families. Many of the violent actions in 1919 during Red Summer were done because of jealousy, because the people who were lynched or attacked were successful or looking to be successful. And they were murdered, killed, ran out of town. By the time we get to the Tulsa Race Massacres of 1921, we had already had communities since after World War I continually being attacked because Black people came back from the war. Black men came back from the war with a sense of pride and worth, having defended this country. And they felt they were owed, rightfully so, something. And whites, racist whites, pushed back. We talk about the burning of White Wall Street, and I cannot tell you how many white people have told me, I never heard about that. And I would tell them all the time, I'm not surprised. And how the Greenwood District was burned down. But what we don't often talk about is how whites looted it. They went in before they burned it and destroyed things. As they were doing that, they went in and took things. Same thing with Rosewood. Rosewood, Florida. They showed up, accused a black man of assaulting a white woman, and went about stealing and destroying and killing the people in the town. And what is not often talked about, after the massacre, they took the land. They took the wealth. And they kept it, even though there was no deed and no right. This is not new. We could go from massacre to massacre. We can go from state to state to state to state. But the reality is the wealth that we bring to it, to this country, is important. When after the Civil War in the Carolinas, we voted in some of the first black politicians in both state and federal jobs. And these men went in to rebuild the Carolinas. But by the end of Reconstruction, as white people got jealous and wanted what they saw the blacks striving to get, because let's really talk about why Reconstruction failed. It failed because we were doing better. Dr. King talks about in his last book how just because you want equality for me doesn't mean you want me to be equal to you. And that was a reality. The Wilmington insurrection in North Carolina, where they kicked all of these people out and they killed these people, that was all about regaining power, authority, and wealth. And then they realized we can't do this and not get the vote. Because if we allow them to vote, they will vote in their protection, as we did when we voted in Ulysses S. Grant, who then, during Reconstruction, sit federal troops down to martial law the South to ensure that the first Klan died. We have provided wealth. We have provided understanding. We have done many, many things in this country, but at the height of it, at the hope of it, we're still blinded about who we are and what we've done. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because as we lose ourselves to these things, we forget who we are. It is why after World War II, there was a change in the Black community. Not that we didn't work hard, not that we didn't have businesses or wanted to thrive, but pushed into an okey-doke mentality where we allowed them to put us in ghettos and housing. We allowed them to use us as a workforce to grow the wealth of cities like Chicago, Detroit, New York. And if you looked at the history behind it, I've said this before, Mayor Theorella LaGuardia, Robert Moses, Many people don't even know who Robert Moses is. But Robert Moses was an architect of society. He worked with Theorella LaGuardia. He worked with those Democrats and those people post World War II after FDR, because FDR played a part in it too, and building these city-states, these ghettos that you saw in many of these cities, these communities that were denied to live in areas where their houses had value. They were redlined. They were pushed aside. And they were given jobs, menial jobs. You know what they call now black jobs. And they were denied generational wealth so that they could not grow out of where they were. When you don't own your home, but you're living in a state-assisted project, when they flood drugs into that project, when they flood corruption and crime and evil into those projects, your family suffers from it. And the okie doke happened. And so we started to see these situations like the Detroit riots, the LA riots, Watts riots. We started to see people fall into destitution, fall into drugs. We saw that. And all we could do is survive. And many of us did. But now we have to get back into where we were. The earlier thought of growing and knowing who you are. Black businesses, Black entrepreneurs. People make fun of a person who wants to start their own company now. Why? I saw a guy talking about, man, you could get an LLC for $16. If that LLC allows you to live your dream, to go start your business, and to provide something that you can leave for your family, don't let anybody detour you. Black people have a wealth of knowledge that we have separated from. And to a certain extent, some of our ancestors failed to pass on due to pain, due to anger, due to whatever. But that doesn't mean we have to stop where we are and not grow. It doesn't mean that we buy into the things that we see in the media. I did a program 2 weeks ago, that said diversity is our strength. Diversity is a strength. We can't pretend to be strong and separate. There's no strength in separation. Even as a military tactic, you separate to rejoin. Stronger, more unified. We are falling into a complete overall accepted separation. You look through the 60s and the 70s and you see how the manipulation started. As people came up from the South and how they manipulated these cities to put a whole generation of Black people in an okie doke mentality. And then many of them were forced to go live in areas that they didn't want to live in. In Boston in the 1950s, they worked at okie doke where former soldiers, veterans who had bought houses in Boston, in Lower Roxbury, they wanted to build a road. This is something like Robert Moses did in New York. And because they wanted to build a road, they came up with the idea of what we now call displacement, right? We're not going to necessarily kick you out, but eminent domain means you have to give up this house, and we don't have to pay you full value for it. But I got this house due to my GI Bill. Well, that's great. But you can go live in this row house, in this project, and tell you what, you won't even have to pay as much for that. But you won't own that house like you owned this one. We have to be smarter in this day and age to know our worth. We're seeing gentrification, urban renewal. People are selling these brownstones, these white stones. They're selling these homes that their families, that their grandparents, that people got back in the day, so that they can come in and clean up the neighborhood and then update everything and call it a historic housing area because it dates back from a century ago. And you don't realize that that house was yours. But they realized it when they saw it. We play a huge part in our economy. Our culture has played a huge part in where we are in the world, where we are respected. But it is up to us to honor that. To honor that. Well, I'm gonna it's been a great episode. I enjoyed this episode. Please feel free, those of you who are still watching, to leave a comment, share the program with those out there. Help us to grow this network. We're doing so much better and so well in growing and reaching new people all over. And I want us to continue to do that. So I ask that you go out and you share wherever you do your social media and help us to grow. You see my book over here in the corner, 101 Black History Question Challenge. Please look that up. If you haven't bought it yet, go on Amazon, get the digital question book that is an interactive book for $18, or you can get this lovely paperback book, pretty thick, a lot of knowledge, for $40 on Amazon. You can get on there. I guarantee you that in reading this early world book, you will find out things about early cultures, and realize that our culture does not start with us being subservient, with us being a slave, with us being enslaved. Our culture starts much earlier than that, and our influence on the world. And so please feel free to go do that. Help us to sell more of those books, get this information out there, and get people to start coming on to the program. I appreciate all of you who have been in and out. I've seen numbers go back and forth throughout the live tonight. I thank all of you who have joined us and been on. Maybe you couldn't stay for the entire live, but I appreciate whatever time that you gave to us and stayed with us. And watched as I went on through this lesson. For the last 5 minutes of this, I usually used to do this in the beginning of the program, but now I'm just going to limit it to the last 5 or 6 minutes of the program. I open up to any questions, concerns, thoughts that you may have historically about what's going on right now. If it's not something we can answer within the next 5 minutes, it may be something that we can handle in the next episode. So I want you to feel free to chat it up. Throw it in here and let us know what you think, what your thoughts are. If you are watching the recording of this program, leave it in the comments, and I guarantee you that I will respond. I try to respond to every comment that we get about these programs, because I want us all to learn together, and I want to provide facts and understanding to you that can help you grow your understanding. The other thing is, I don't believe and having information out there without facts. I don't believe in that. And so we always want to provide you with a source, primary source, secondary source, something that would allow you to grow your knowledge so that you can be more well fed and more knowledgeable, and not just regurgitating what you heard me or someone said. Right? I see a lot of historians online, so-called historians. I see a lot of people get on and say what they're going to say, but provide little evidence to support any of the so-called facts that they put out. And that is not something that I want this network to be about. And from the very beginning of starting Erudition, that was the push. That was my second or first. I know I mentioned it in my first live, but I believe my first video that we ever put out on the Erudition Network, video wise, talked about how we source our information. And I've done lessons on here. You can go back in our YouTube history on how to do research, how to properly vet historical research, and how I go about the process. Because it's not just me going on Google. It's not just me going to go pull Wikipedia. It's not just me going. You have to be willing to dive deep if you want knowledge. And you have to be willing to read the obscure books. You have to be willing to translate the obscure language. You have to be willing to be wrong. Even when you think that you know the answer, you have to understand that your initial hypothesis could be wrong and that your alternative hypothesis could be right. And if you can go about it that way, you will have real learning, real understanding, real knowledge, and you will grow your knowledge and understanding. So I guess none of you have any comments, questions, concern? Anybody? That's fine. I understand. This is a lot of times I get pretty much very few questions, even though we make this interactive. The questions are few, and that's fine. As long as you're getting something. If you could just type in and say, I got something, I'm all right with that. I'm okay with that. I'm trying to see. My phone was pinging, and I was trying to see if someone was sending me any information here. But I think Facebook was blocking some things. If I missed your stuff tonight, you all, I'm sorry. I am really trying to work with this Facebook thing and trying to get them to put so I can see your comments. But even if you commented on Facebook and I missed it during the live, I will reply to you after the fact. I was looking at my phone to see that it was pinging. But I'm going to get ready to get out of here. This has been an hour. This has been really, really fun. I thank you all for joining me this Thursday. I apologize for not being here last Thursday. Sometimes things come up, but we are here, God willing, every Thursday to provide knowledge and understanding and to help us grow as we go through our daily situations, as we go through what we're seeing in the country and in the world right now. Know your worth. Know who you are. Know what your ancestors brought to the table. Know that these situations that we face right now are not new, and that many times history is cyclical and it comes back. But at the same time, it comes back to test us to see if we are still knowledgeable or stronger, and we have learned from where we have been before. And the only way to do that is to hold on to your history, hold on to who you are and where you come from. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get on out of here. I did not put up my banner. I will do that as I get ready to get off here. I want you to do whatever you can to help with Erudition. The least But the best thing you can do is share the program. But if you are looking to help to donate anything to the Erudition Network, this is our Cash App, $ the Erudition Network, $ the Erudition Network. It helps us as we build new things, as we work on new things to better benefit our sessions and our programs that we try to put on to the network. So whatever you do is appreciated. But if finances is not what you can, please share this program so that others can grow. I try to go on after we do these programs and share them across social media. Help me with that so that we can reach more and more people and we can grow this network. But until we get to that point, I want to say thank you all. Have a blessed and wonderful weekend. And God willing, we will see you here again next Thursday. Be blessed. Thank you.